We're proud of it. It's a cool place. If you're nearby, come and visit. We're an hour and a half out of Chicago. Easy trip. We have lots of amenities, farmers market, minor league baseball team here, great golf courses, great, dining and shopping. So we'd encourage folks to come check us out. And we found that people that visit here come back. So we want to encourage folks to do that.
Yeah. Okay, the Gentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Gentry. The Gentry Podcast. The Gentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello, and welcome to the Gentry Podcast. Today, we have an incredible guest. I'm your host, Jonathan Mason, and with me today, I have Drew Pennington, who is the Economic Development Director of Beloit, Wisconsin, and he brings a breadth of experience. I've been waiting for this one for quite a while, so I don't want to steal his thunder, but I am so excited for today. But before we jump in, Drew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. But as you know, I want to jump in like I always do. So what is the special sauce? What is the secret that makes Beloit, Wisconsin the best place to live in the United States?
It's the people. Just the attitude here is a can-do attitude, can-do spirit. It's a community that has overcome a lot, frankly, never gives up. Keeps working, keeps innovating. Lots of unique companies have been founded here. Lots of inventions have been founded here. Lots of success. And so it's the people and just a ethnically, racially diverse city in Wisconsin, right on the Illinois border, and just kind of has really reinvented itself in the last 20 to 30 years.
Wow, I love that. And I can't wait to get into some of that reinvention. But before we do, I always say you learn so much about a city by learning about their leadership. So what was childhood like? Did you always know you were going to be in public service? What was that journey?
No, for me, I did not. I grew up in Minnesota, so I've been in the Midwest my whole life, but went to school in Wisconsin, UW-Madison. And then after that was living actually in the Twin Cities for a while and living and working in the two respective downtowns. And that's actually how I got interested in urban development, was just kind of living in that community, those communities without a vehicle, using public transportation, and just kind of got an interest in how cities develop and how cities operate. And that's how I ended up going back to planning school and getting into urban planning as a career, and now economic development.
That is beautiful. Somebody that got to see the benefits of transportation and an effective usage of a city plan, and then got into planning. Now that is great. Now shifting to Beloit, what are some of the strategic priorities or the goals of Beloit over the next 18 to 24 months?
Continuing our economic development work, we've done a lot with business attraction and retention here. We have a business park that is doing really well. Lots of high quality jobs in the park. It's right on Interstate 90, so has higher traffic counts, about 70,000 vehicles a day through that park. And so that's helps us attract a lot of industry, warehousing, distribution, manufacturing, some office and R&D, some high-tech stuff in the medical field as well. And so continuing that, we're actually running out of land. We use, like a lot of Midwestern cities, we use discounted land as an incentive to attract development. And we've been selling land for 20 years and we're running out. So we do need to look at how we acquire land and where, and be strategic with that. So that effort, and then housing, certainly, like a lot of communities, housing is a major need here and has become more of an economic development issue, in my opinion, over the last decade. And so looking at the tools we have available, we've deployed a lot of those, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of those, like TIF and other incremental financing and other things, and working with our friends in the legislature as well to make sure that cities have the tools in the toolbox to address the housing crisis that's across the country.
That's incredible. I think those are some major things. Land is hard to come by, but it sounds like you guys are putting a strategy together to be able to acquire and potentially annex some new land in, and then housing. Housing is difficult most places, and it sounds like Beloit is not immune to that. But I want to press a little bit harder before we get into some of the X's and O's. When people say housing is hard across the nation, or it's a tough issue, or people are looking for housing, it looks so different. When people say that in your community, what are they actually saying, or what is the bottleneck they may be pointing at?
Yeah, it depends on your perspective. And so that has been my experience. We are more affordable than lots of parts of the country. And that there's no doubt about that. When we host business leaders from different parts of the country and they see the price of housing that's for sale or for rent, they're blown away at how affordable it is. But the reality is that our residents have seen significant increases of 30-40% in their rent in the last decade, right? So that pinch is real. They're feeling that. It doesn't make anyone's life easier. It's not easier to pay the bills because it's more expensive on the West Coast. That's the reality that our residents are facing. So attracting people, new residents to the community has to start with attracting housing developers. We've worked with the tools we have to try to promote different housing across the spectrum. Some single family, we need some multifamily. We need more mixed use. We need to start looking at, to your point about running out of land, we have to start looking at infill. We've had a couple of successful infill projects that are doing very well, and a couple more on the way. But how do we do more with less, or a fixed amount of land? But yeah, residents, as far as what they're saying on housing, we want more. They want to see more to alleviate some of that pressure. Now, where things get tricky, of course, is that infill is a change to a neighborhood, and sometimes that's not always welcome.
Makes a ton of sense. And I appreciate you kind of breaking down the different nuances of a very complex issue. Now, you mentioned a few tools, things like TIF. Could you kind of share some of the tool belt that you guys are using to entice or encourage developers to build houses?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the tools that all Wisconsin cities have is called TIF, tax incremental financing. And so there's different ways to deploy it. But for the housing piece, we're allowed, when we have successful TIF districts that have attracted businesses and increased in value, we can extend the life of that TIF district by 1 or more years. And I say more because they just changed that law this last session to allow a second year of extension. But you can extend it for a year and then use that tax increment to fund affordable housing. And so the idea is to balance out the business growth with the housing growth, which makes a lot of sense. For us, we had about a $12 million fund, which is a ton of money for a city of our size, to develop housing programs. The first program we developed was we actually bought some land out of foreclosure, fully improved subdivision that was sitting there in foreclosure, and no developers wanted to touch it because it had a lot of special assessments hanging over the property. We bought the land, paid off the debt, and then found a developer through a competitive process to build spec homes. So they built 23 spec homes on those lots, and they all sold immediately. So that was a good program. We also did a downtown upper floor housing grant. That was a smaller line item, about $400,000 program that offered matching grants to downtown business owners. If they had a storefront or whatnot and had a vacant second or third story, they could apply for a grant to build that out as a apartment. And so lots of demand for that as well. We had 15 new units built with that, and way more applications than we were able to fund. And then we've also done a couple of single family subdivisions. We had a competitive program for $1 million for new single family home subdivisions, and we had lots of interest in that. And we're actually supporting a couple of different subdivisions. One on the smaller side, around 40 units, and the other one with a mix of units that's closer to 100. And then the biggest chunk of money we actually allocated for affordable housing. And in Wisconsin, the low-income housing tax credit program, or the LIHTC program, flows through a state agency. And we used our funding to supplement that. So in order to apply for our TIF funding, you had to be applying for the state funding. And the reason we did that was they have an established quality program where the units are regularly inspected, long-term affordability is ensured. So we allocated $6 million of our total to that program. And we do have a new affordable housing project coming, breaking ground, hopefully in July. And then we have two other programs. We have a roof replacement program that our community development office ran, where low-income homeowners could apply to replace their roof, since that's the most important part of preserving the life of the home. And then we have an infill incentive that we're still developing, where ideally with vacant lots, of which we have more than our fair share within established neighborhoods, an infill program to kind of incentivize the home builders to come in and build one or two spec houses on a block. Details of that are yet to be established. And then the final allocation of funding was for a sewer lift station. One of those things that's not super exciting, but necessary, right? So we had a neighborhood that's done really well, full of 1 and 2 family, and they were running out of space. They needed to expand. So one of our builders here, New Leaf Homes, was building that. City's going to come in and build a lift station so that they can continue to build spec homes in their area. So those programs alone, the money, the 12 million was accounted for.
Yeah. 12 million goes by a little bit quicker than people may think, but it sounds like you guys are really putting pen to pad to create and think of ways to supplement the ability for people to get into units and do it at an affordable place. So one thing I did want to ask, and you brought this up, and this happens across the United States, not just in the Midwest. People run out of land. So how are you guys kind of thinking through that strategy? It looks like you guys may have ways that you're thinking of maybe expanding. And what does that process look like? And how do you figure out what is a desirable place for you guys to maybe expand to?
Yeah, we are because we're on the Illinois state line, we cannot grow to the south, obviously. We cannot grow to the west due to some environmental constraints with shallow bedrock and whatnot. That leaves us with kind of northeast as the only logical area to grow, but it's very expensive to extend utilities. I would say that our planning department, to their credit, has taken the lead on looking at density and how we incorporate density into our existing neighborhoods. So they embarked on a planning effort, a new comprehensive plan or long-range plan in a couple of years ago that established some new policies to guide that. So one of them is reintroducing 2-family and 3-family uses into single-family districts. So that they're working on that right now from an ordinance perspective. Same with small-scale commercial, reintroducing the neighborhood store, that sort of thing. So they're looking at doing that. And then looking at, multifamily has historically needed to go through extra approvals, design approvals, and trying to look at that and audit that process to see if it's really necessary or if there more can be delegated to a staff level for review. Because we've had projects that were very unnecessarily controversial in the sense that it was a piece of land, it allowed 400 units, for example, and the developer wanted to build 300, but they needed multiple buildings. And that necessitated this lengthy public review where the neighborhood got all upset and whatnot. That type of thing, when it's already allowed, it really doesn't serve any purpose other than getting folks riled up. And so looking at those codes and ordinances and what works, where is that balance, So they're looking at that as well and hoping to see some drafts of that ordinance yet this summer.
Makes a ton of sense. And thank you for kind of sharing the strategy, because that is not an easy thing. That was I heard it somewhere. It's like they're not making any more land. So we have to sometimes figure out ways to work around it through things like density and proper planning, and then checking municipal code. So I definitely applaud you guys for leaving no stone unturned. But that kind of dovetails. So I always like this question. So 3 a.m. in the morning, late at night, what is the thing that is on your mind that's keeping you up at night? One challenge that maybe it's housing, maybe it's something else, that just sometimes you wake up late at night, you're like, you know what, if we could just solve X, what is that challenge?
Yeah, for us, it's the educational landscape, and that includes everything from, early childhood education through K-12. It's a very complex situation in our community. We have lots of change, lots of changes in enrollment in our school system, lots of competition. Education has become very competitive, and not just here, but a lot of places. For example, Wisconsin has open enrollment system where you can apply to send your children outside of the district you live in. We also have school choice where the state will provide vouchers for private school education. Things like that. Those two have really led to a lot of competition. It's not unusual for one nearby school district to be marketing to families in another district to get them to send their children almost like a business would. So it's become very competitive. We partner with all the districts in our area to various degrees to support them and their work because they are building the future workforce. One area that folks in our area have really excelled at is career and technical education, really building up the trades as a viable career path for kids that are here, really building up the manufacturing programs as well, CNC, welding, all these things. Our local high school has phenomenal programs in construction, electrical, all these things. And the kids can actually get credits at our local tech college as well. So they have kind of dual credit opportunities. That to me is the biggest piece of the puzzle is how do we support those educators so that we can use that workforce to not just attract businesses, but address some of the other mismatch we have in the community. And by mismatch, I mean, we have about 16,000 people a day coming into Beloit to work, and then an equal, slightly lesser number leaving the city every day to commute elsewhere to work. There are huge differences in the skill. There's a skills gap there. Folks coming in are taking more higher paying jobs. How do we reverse that? How do we make sure that our employers that are here can find talent right in their own backyard? So we work very closely with our Chamber of Commerce, with our K-12 partners, with our tech college to truly, really try to build that workforce from within. And we have companies here that have really succeeded and to their credit have really embraced this. A very recognizable company that I'll mention is Frito-Lay. They've done an excellent job here locally with building their talent pipeline. And they've done that by getting involved, getting into the schools, hosting job shadows and tours, taking on youth apprentices and others that are high school students, but they're actually in the facility doing a job, finding out what they like and don't like. And it's really helped to build their pipeline and to their credit. So those are the types of partnerships that I wish all of our employers would embrace. We have a good group that has, but we also have others that have not touched it. And so encouraging them to do so is a big part of my role.
Makes a ton of sense, and I can appreciate as a father, I can appreciate the one thing keeping you up is education and the long term benefit of the residents and the long term benefits of the community, and that starts with the young people. So I definitely can appreciate that, and I second we have to get more people in trades, and I can empathize with trying to balance that. The exodus of people during the day to work in other places and the inflow of people, if you can try to balance that out, I'm sure that would bring a lot more benefit to the community. So with that, I'll officially take you off the hot seat. We'll now transition into our last chance games. So this comes from improv. So whatever is the first thing that comes to your mind, I'd like you to say that. I'll say a couple questions in a row, and then I'll stop. I'll go back to the first one, and I'll give you a chance to change your answer, cancel your answer, or explain your answer. So I'll jump in.
Good.
I'll jump in with the first one. What is a policy that looks good on paper, but is almost impossible to execute in real life?
Well, I would say that, highway expansion as a policy is a complicated, it often looks good, but there's unintended consequences of that. We experience that locally, right? Where we have a newly expanded interstate system It looks great, helps us attract a lot of businesses. However, it makes commuting very, very easy. And so we're seeing that mismatch. That mismatch is almost facilitated by some of the recent expansion here, where you can get in and out of our park in seconds. So I don't know that it's impossible to execute, but it's you have to be kind of nuanced with it when you're looking at expanding a highway to address congestion or whatever. All kinds of unintended consequences with that.
That makes a ton of sense, and yeah, I can hear the balancing act or the nuance in that. My next question is, what role do you not have on staff that if you could add would make a huge benefit immediately?
A workforce development coordinator would be a role that I think would be really important. And that would include someone whose full-time role is connecting our employers and our school districts with those opportunities I was talking about. Because there's a lot of logistics to it. Just things like paperwork and transportation, busing the kids, all that. That's a role that not a lot of economic development organizations have, but I think is a very valuable role. And so we've got some partners that have in the manufacturing world that are looking at, could we create this role to really make this a full-time role? But we're not there yet.
But it sounds like you kind of already had those conversations and the seed was at least set. So I definitely tip my hat there. So my next question is a two-parter. What is a role or task that AI could help you with? And what is a task that AI could never help you with?
Well, I think that to the first question, we're writing a strategic plan right now. Certainly, I can foresee deploying AI on something like that, culling best practices for writing a strategic plan in a lengthy document like that. But something that can't be replicated would just be the personal connections that go along with economic development. When we are attracting business leaders to our community, they want to see it, they want to feel it, they want to be here, they want to tour the community and meet the people. A lot of the success here locally has been from connections, referrals from one business leader to another. Hey, come check it out, see what we're doing in the Beloit area. So just that I don't know if vibe's the right word, but I actually had a CEO tell me I like the vibe of downtown Beloit, and so you can't replicate that. You have to experience it.
I love that. I've asked this question a bunch of times, but yeah, it's that vibe, the flavor of a community that AI can't do, at least not yet.
Yeah,
So
right.
I love that answer. So the next one is, what do developers understand about housing projects that municipal leaders and or the community may overlook? And the complete inverse of that, what do municipal leaders understand that developers may overlook or miss?
Well, they certainly understand their pro forma more than more than we do, and what that means, that the different how the different requirements that are applied, how they influence the ability of a project to earn acceptable returns for them. Time, that's something we're constantly working on, is speed of review, right? You can have little delays can cause big problems. A couple of years ago in a different environment, but we had, a developer who had interest rates really fluctuating on them, and that affected them. The inverse, I would say, is that municipal officials are trying to look out for the entire community. So when they require a developer to put in a sidewalk or a bike path or some kind of public improvement, they're doing it for the right reason. They're trying to make sure that development is walkable, is bikeable, is connected to the transit system. They're not doing it, to be adversarial. They're doing it to try to make sure that they have a complete community. So, you know, uh, I see both sides of that in my role as well. So that's a unique vantage point.
Yeah, no, that I think that was a great way of breaking it down. There are things that both people are working to see better, and you have a good viewpoint of both. So another tough one: what is the hardest truth you wish residents understood about timelines and trade-offs in municipal government?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a long time to bring projects to fruition. Certainly, I'll have those conversations with residents where they want to see X, Y, or Z, and why isn't that happening yet? And just there's a lot behind the scenes, right? There might be financial reasons. The developer might be trying to get their loan, close on their loan. There might be other investors that back out. So it is a long game, and we're definitely an increasingly impatient society. So development is just takes a lot of patience for sure.
Then this is the last question before we get to the free money part of the podcast. So what is the biggest long-term challenge that cannot be addressed in a 2 to 4 year election cycle?
Childcare, I would say, is the biggest. It's just such a monumental challenge in the country right now. Significant locally, but I think that there's a desire to see easy wins or let's fix childcare. And it's just so interconnected with everything, with the education system, with workforce participation, with household stability. I mean, all these things. It's not something that can be resolved quickly. It requires constant work in our experience.
Makes a ton of sense. It is as a tough one. I always hear that one come up so often because it's just so important, but so complex. And then there's only so many levers at times, it feels like, that a municipal government can pull to increase and better that one. So glad to hear that it's such a big focus from the early child care to all the way up through high school. So now we get to the free money part of the podcast. So it's 3 different degrees of the same question. So with $100,000 added to your budget, what role or challenge would you tackle? And then the next one, with $1 million added to your budget, what challenge would you tackle? And the last one is, with unlimited money, unlimited staff, unlimited resources, whatever you need for an entire year, what challenge or initiative would you tackle?
Sure. Well, I would say for 100,000, we'd be looking at some downtown projects, right? I mean, downtown beautification projects. We've got a phenomenal Main Street program here. Actually, won a Great American Main Street Award a decade ago, and which we're very proud of. And we got a huge farmers market. 6,000 people every Saturday morning come downtown and walk around and buy locally grown produce and goods. And so we've made beautification a big effort. And so that can include public works of art, pedestrian enhancements, placemaking, and I would say we really do even more. We have a wish list. We have a list of things we would like, just things like, for example, a downtown dog park. We want to build a downtown dog park because we've noticed that a lot of people move into our community. They may not have kids, but they have dogs. And so trying to encourage that type of thing. So that would be my first answer: downtown amenities and beautification. Second question, I would say, what was the amount on the second one?
$1 million.
1 million. Housing program. We would build a market rate housing program to incentivize kind of that missing middle housing. Everything from duplexes, townhouses, mixed use. If we had $1 million, I think that was not tied to being for certain income levels, we'd have a little more flexibility to design a program that's attractive and could attract a mix of folks inside and outside the community. So we'd be able to do something there. And then unlimited, I come back to the childcare issue, right? I mean, even though it couldn't be solved with that amount, it'd be a really great pilot program, because that's what it's going to take. Is how do we fix this industry that is so decimated by the pandemic and by the end of some of the pandemic related funding? It's fundamentally a workforce issue. We have a great early childhood program in our local high schools and our tech college, but no one is staying in the field. They're all leaving the industry, right? So how do we structure a pilot program that props up that industry as a viable career path for young people? Because we have the facilities, we have them, we have the buildings. That's not the issue. The issue is the pay of that workforce and the lack of benefits. And so could we structure a pilot program to do that?
I love that. From downtown beautification to housing, increasing the housing stock, and then you've been consistent around education. And again, I just want to tip my hat to you there. With all the money in the world, you would work on making sure that early childhood education is taken care of, and I'm sure the parents in Beloit can really appreciate that. So we're getting to the end here, Drew. Yeah. But I do want to give you a chance if there's anything you want to leave our viewers with about Beloit or about being a municipal government leader.
Well, we want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about our community. We're proud of it. It's a cool place. If you're nearby, come and visit. We're an hour and a half out of Chicago. Easy trip. We have lots of amenities, farmers market, minor league baseball team here, great golf courses, great dining and shopping. So we'd encourage folks to come check us out. And we found that people that visit here come back. So we want to encourage folks to do that. But once again, thank you.
Pleasure's all mine, Drew. From everyone here at Jentry, I'd like to say thank you so much for taking your time and sharing your insights, and then also sharing your focus on education, because I think that is admirable. And then to the viewers, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Again, I am your host, Jonathan Mason, and with me today was Drew Pennington, who is the Economic Development Director of Beloit, Wisconsin. Thank you, and have a great day.